Hi there, welcome to Tarotland Soap Opera. Today I'm going to do a reading for Leo energy. And like usual on this channel, we're going to do two rows. The top row I refer to as high vibe Leo energy. The bottom row, a more worldly, shadowy Leo energy. Oops. And we all have free will. And we have to make decisions in our life. And because of our dualistic nature, some people right now could be battling within themselves. They might want to live their life a little differently, but we have to, the reason for the top rose reading, we have to quit harnessing that energy, for one, in a more immature way. And in high vibe, the Page of Pentacles means you got out of your ego, or your defensive nature, or your fear, your insecurity, or your more self-indulgent nature in some way, to be willing to be a student of life, to learn lessons in life. Life is about learning lessons. We go through these phases of life. We're 15, 18, 21, 25. We come in contact with all these different people in the world, hopefully to help us get more clear about what our truth is. But the reason for the bottom rose reading is the Five of Wands, which is Leo energy. We can have inner conflict about, the fives talk about change. So we want to keep doing what we're doing, kind of stay in our comfort zone. And sometimes to move forward in life differently, we'd have to change. And high vibe energy and the pentacle can mean seeing the truth. And, to change and see the truth of what needs to change. And it could be that we're hanging out with people that really don't want us to be a student of life, or don't want us to, high vibe energies being more independent, less aligned with your more immature worldly nature, which can be fear and insecurity. The pages can represent codependency. The Page of Pentacles also can represent all three of the earth sign energies. And in our fire sign energy of Leo, we could have been more inspired in our more worldly nature of Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. And I think, for the first 30 to 50 years of our life, we're pretty inspired by the world. There's a lot of things in the world that we want to indulge in, manifest. We're just kind of more aligned with our more worldly nature. For one, we have these lessons to learn. And there are all these things that we want to manifest, and we want. We want friendship, relationship, have a job. Leo energy can be about looking victorious and successful. And there's these things that we view. The Eight of Wands can be these things, competitive energy, things that cause us inner conflict. We want these things. There's things we want to manifest. And so in our fire sign energy, we can be pretty fired up about the world. And some people will always stay more fired up about the world and maybe keep being in inner conflict, or keep being in competitive energy, or defensive to change, or defensive to getting out of their ego and being willing to change, to step out of their comfort zone. Again, when we go through these phases of life, just like when we were 18, 21, 25, we lived life a certain way, we viewed life a certain way. Could there have been things about it at a certain point in time that caused us some inner conflict, because there was a part of us that would kind of like to change? But what if all the people we hang out with live their life that way? But we'd kind of like to go do something different. Like, I don't want to keep doing these things. Well, then people in our life could kind of have some inner conflict about us. That, well, you seem like you've changed. You seem like, and then people can get in competitive energy. People can be mad. People can kind of get in jealous or envious energy. Like, why aren't you still doing this? Why are you doing that? So it's kind of, are we, again, in high vibe energies, being more independent to live your more authentic truth, not doing things more out of pride or ego, or I think I'm better than you, or whatever. It's just that my dream might be different than your dream, and how you're happy living your life, I could have been happy living my life that way too. I could have been in a job and I was happy at that job, but then, it's kind of built in us that we do learn these lessons is kind of, I think, the goal. That we learn the lessons we're meant to learn at every phase of life. And then if we don't, high vibe Leo's about the Five of Wands comes after the Four of Wands, and the Four of Wands is about ourself because it's Aries energy. And that, we kind of learn these lessons at this phase of life that kind of at that phase of life in the Four of Wands, we kind of feel like we're firing on all four cylinders, which can kind of be that I kind of learned the lessons I was meant to learn from that phase of life. And then with the additional wand, the Four of Wands plus the one wand, I'm kind of ready to move forward in life a little differently. I've changed. I am not the same person I was when I entered a phase of life. And I think high vibe people offer the pentacle can be truth and love, the wands can be encouragement. I'm offering truth and love and encouragement to the people I'm working with at whatever phase of life I'm at for them to come with me. And then here we have the Nine of Cups, which can talk about being independent. And also it's Pisces energy, which is emotional water sign energy of kind of having hope and faith and belief in yourself and in your dreams and in love. Come with me. Let's all face some of our fears and our insecurities. And then we have the Seven of Cups, Leo, and the Seven of Cups, which is Scorpio energy, is fixed sign energy. And, Aries is cardinal energy, kind of like let's start something new. Pisces is an energy that helps us transition out of phases of life. But then we have to work through that emotional confusion about change. Because in our fixed sign energy, when we've been working on something or doing our life a certain way, we really wish that would keep working out the way we wanted, like that we didn't have to change, that whatever we would like to have change would change so that it can all work out the way we want. But if part of what's not changing is that everyone else could be great, loving and encouraging and supportive people, but they might like in fixed sign energy to keep staying in their comfort zone. And then they want us to stay in our comfort zone. Just stay here. Let's keep doing this. Because we aren't ready to get out of trying to make this different or better or work. And they're still willing to keep putting in work and effort to make it work, whatever it could be. Like, oh, I'm sure the job will change. Oh, I'm sure something will happen in this dynamic that we're involved in. And in their Eight of Swords, which is Gemini energy of our dualistic free will, they could still be more up in their head about moving forward in the Chariot. And the Chariot is also Cancer energy, which is about love of self, love of others, and just getting more balance within ourselves. When we enter a phase of life, it's kind of like, yeehaw, let's go. And we're really happy. Maybe new job, new friendship, new relationship. Go from age 18 to age 21, for example. But then as time goes by, the Four of Pentacles again can be, I started something, I went in a phase of life, my intuition could kind of be telling me it's time to either face my fears, put in more work and effort, grow and heal and mature myself, see the truth of some things that aren't going the way I thought. And, sometimes we can be in relationships with people, or we can be in a workplace, whatever it is, or a friendship dynamic or group. And initially there's a lot of things in the Nine of Cups that we like about it. The Nine of Cups and the Seven of Cups, emotional water sign energy. We're happy, we have friendship, we have relationship, we have a job, you know? And then we could move forward with some of those things. And maybe initially in the Gemini energy of free will, maybe it could seem like we're kind of on the same page. And maybe we were on the same page. But again, as we're continuing to keep moving forward in whatever new things as we go through our life, those different stages of life that we go into, is everybody willing to change? You know, we can go through many cycles with people because we have a lot of lessons to learn in life. And we have a lot of healing and growing and maturing to do. And we can get in these relationships with people and we can kind of be loving and encouraging people who we each can help each other to work through some of our fears and our insecurities, to feel more balanced within ourselves. We're kind of helping each other change. But there can come a point at some time in the relationship where are people willing to keep healing and growing and maturing themselves and working through their fears or their insecurities, or do we get to some truth where that's a bigger problem to overcome? And it could be just in their fire sign and their earth sign energies within themselves and their Gemini energy, what at a core foundational level, kind of more of what their truth is. And we can be loving and encouraging people to each other through a phase of life or several phases of life, kind of that phrase, like some people come into your life for a period of time, you know, and some people could be there a long time, other people aren't there a long time. But the thing is, from everybody that we come in contact with, we have lessons learned from that person. Again, for us to help get more clear about what our truth is and our truth isn't. And with some of the people from the Nine of Cups down to the Seven of Cups, the difference is the Two of Cups, which is Cancer energy. Some people who are maybe a little more competitive or defensive or immature or bossy or controlling or full of themselves or whatever, you know, we can be attracted to people, but then we can become kind of confused in the Seven of Cups because we thought maybe we were both inspired within ourselves and thought we were both more independent of being more about ourselves to, in our free will, align with our more hopeful, believing, loving nature. And then we can get in relationships with people and they're like, well, no, I still have inner conflict about love, or I still have inner conflict about change, or me having to change, or me having to compromise. And they could still have a way of viewing life and themselves and others and how they view other people and how they view relationships. They still have a certain way in fixed sign energy, maybe kind of what they think is just and fair, because in order to have a new beginning, which is what like the one sword, the one cup, the one pentacle can talk about, we have to have closed out an old chapter. And there's a maximum of 10 in every suit, and this one is the 8. And to go from the 8 to the 10, we'd have to work through the Two of Swords, which is Libra energy of what we think is just and fair. So some people have a way of viewing life that they enjoy, that they think is just and fair in their Gemini nature of their free will. I live my life like this. I view my life like this. I view what I find emotionally fulfilling this, how I want to keep moving forward is this. And some people, the truth is, they're still more inspired to be more about themselves, more about the world. And so getting in friendships and relationships more can be kind of how it benefits them. Money, status, ego, and image. Or it could be the Four of Pentacles can be, I don't really like to open up to people, or I have this comfort zone that I hold on to and this way of living life, and I'm kind of not willing to let go and be open. The Four of Pentacles plus the One Pentacle would be the Five of Pentacles. And that can be about kind of detaching from an old way of living life or viewing life, or defensiveness or immaturity or fear or codependency. And to be in a relationship, having worked through those things and have that not be maybe the foundational truth that could have made people get in a relationship with someone to begin with. So, there's a lot of different reasons why we get in a different friendship, kind of what could draw and attract us to certain people to get in friendship or relationship with them, why we left one job to look for a different job. But the reason we got into something can change over time, right? When we were younger, we had a lot of lessons to learn. We had a lot of growing up and maturing to do. And we probably got in relationships with people who kind of liked and were inspired to invest their time, energy, and effort into some of the same things we invested our time, energy, and effort into. We're always looking for people who kind of seem to be inspired by the same things we are. I like to go do this, that makes me happy. I don't do these things. And we're looking for people who are kind of on the same page as us. And with some of those people, can we enjoy them and enjoy their company? Maybe some of those people, they're not people we'd want a more involved relationship or friendship with. Can we get along with people at work, in our neighborhood? Could we start to date someone? And then we kind of realize, it's all this process of getting to know people. And that's what the pages can be. It's these small gestures of trying to get to know people. I kind of want to get to know you to see, are you someone I would, I can like people, I can be attracted to people, but do I really love them? And the Nine of Cups can be that we do like people, and the Seven of Cups can be that we're kind of caught up in the illusion of people. And again, we can put in work and effort to try to get to know people more. But then as we do, how do we want to move forward? What is it more that drives and motivates and inspires us? This is my truth. That's your truth. And the components of the things that would make us happy can be very different. Then you could maybe look at the Ten of Cups or the Ten of Pentacles. What makes up what our idea of a long-term, stable, grounded, emotionally abundant relationship consists of? It's like a recipe, and it's kind of unique to everyone. I'd like 3 sprinkles of this and just 1 sprinkle of that, and I'm good. And other people are like, only 1 sprinkle. I would want a cup full of that, But everybody's different. Everybody's has their idea and kind of their truth of, their idea of what they're inspired by. And some people are going to move forward in things and they think they've got the perfect recipe. Well, if those people are making decisions more out of their more worldly, egoic nature, kind of trying to present themselves as, and could view themselves in a lot of ways, they just got some maybe growing and maturing to do. If they make decisions more out of fear, insecurity, pride, ego, lust, greed, money, materialism, or being more about themselves, or being more indulged, driven more by competition, I don't think it's going to quite work out the way they want. They might end up with a lot of those things, but they might have sacrificed a little bit more of truth and love, and they might get themselves in situations that could look very victorious and successful, because the Chariot can talk about that, and the Four of Pentacles of Capricorn can talk about having a lot of these things of the world. But is it more for competitive reasons, ego reasons, defensive reasons? I want to be in a relationship where I don't have to change. Maybe other people have to change. Maybe I don't think I have to change. Maybe I'm kind of full of myself. Some people don't hold back from the truth. And people can live their life like that their whole life. And the Two of Swords also that we talked about here, maybe in order to have new beginnings, everybody has their idea of what's just and fair. And some people are kind of full of themselves, and it does need to be more about them. And it could always be that, well, no, other people need to change, not me. Sometimes other people want to be in relationships with people and like to be in relationships with people where those people do have some changing to do, because they like playing that role in people's lives. And just and fair and loving people can fall into that trap too, where, oh, I'm going to love this person, I'm going to make this person work through some of their fears and their insecurities and things that manipulate them, and I'm going to free them. And some people could think the difference between people who really are more high vibe, they really do have people's best interests, and they know that, well, maybe not necessarily. I think most people some people who are more motivated and inspired by love, there too, we were drawn and attracted to people because of certain ways of being. Well, what if they did change? What if they became everything we thought we wanted them to be? I don't know. Would we still be as attracted to them as we were? Because we were drawn and attracted to them for a certain reason, right? I would say a lot of people who think, oh my goodness, oh, here's someone who's in a mental prison about love, I'm going to get them to become more loving. I think probably odds are most of those people could have become more loving to a degree, but did they ever, within themselves, they had a way of viewing life and living life which can be defensive and have inner conflict about truth and love. They can become more open in a way. They can become more comfortable within themselves. That's kind of high vibe Leo. But to change their whole philosophy of life, that in my worldly philosophy of life, of what drives and motivates me, if someone has always been of a philosophy that they would be happy and are happy, kind of being more caught up in themselves for these things of the world, making their life more about these things of the world, getting in relationships more for how it benefits them or these reasons of the world, but their philosophy of life is, I hold back from the truth, which is supposed to be more about love. That would require someone to get more balance, quit being more motivated by themselves, by their ego, by their fear, by their want of these things of the world, and see through the illusion. Why don't I do love? Why do I have inner conflict about love? Why do I hold back from love? And part of the reason can be is because some people, if you really do love, you could get hurt. And that's why some people in shadowy Leo kind of hide behind their more egoic nature. It's like being in the relationship, enjoying themselves in the relationship, but they hold back from letting their more hopeful, believing, authentic nature from their more worldly nature in more authentically invest, to come out from behind their self-protective egoic nature, to really be inspired to be more authentically themselves and be inspired by love. And in a world of duality where some people always have been in their more worldly nature of self, always more motivated and inspired by love, there's always going to be, in a world of duality where people have free will, people in the world who are kind of the opposite of that. And then we can get in relationships with people where can we like them? Can they like us? Would in a lot of ways it seem victorious and successful by worldly standards? Yes. But the core foundational thing that could keep us in that relationship is this more worldly view of life and our want for those things of the world. But if our truth is we really want to be in relationship with people who, at a core foundational level, what we have in common with them is that we're more motivated and inspired by truth and love and having a more just, fair, balanced life, not where it's so much driven by these things of the world and the fear and the codependency and the want for these things of the world, but really more motivated and inspired by love. That's when people could go through kind of what's a midlife crisis in a way, because most of the people probably that they have aligned themselves with, they have this more worldly viewpoint of life as the common found, like the cornerstone that they built their life upon, and those friendships and those relationships with. And they move forward in those friendships or relationships. And again, we can be loving and encouraging and supportive people. We can change a lot in all those different friendships and relationships. The other people can change a lot. But some of the people in our life are people who, at a core foundational level, are like you, who are kind of more motivated and inspired not to live more from their mind than their heart, not to be in friendship and relationship. Again, we all want friendship and relationship, but not more out of the fear and the insecurity or the codependency, but because you're loving and encouraging and supportive people to each other. And you love each other. And you inspire each other. And the other people could feel that way too. But the difference with some of the people in your life is they are more authentically inspired by what you're inspired by. And they're less up in their head or competitive or kind of they don't hold back from being more truthful and authentic and loving with you. And they're less competitive with you, less maybe up in their head about the fact that you're more independent because they're more independent. They've worked through some of the same fears and insecurities or past pain and heartbreak like you have, or some of the other people maybe haven't. And they would like it almost if you didn't either, because then you'd keep staying in a friendship or relationship or at a job and holding on to them. And with some of those relationships, we come to realize over time, as we keep growing and healing and maturing ourselves, we keep offering them truth and love and encouragement. We're kind of moving forward and they're offering some of that to us. But eventually we can get to, at a core foundational level in our Gemini nature of ourself, where some people aren't willing to come out from behind their ego or it being more about themselves or wanting to be in the relationship but more for the ego or the image or the status. And the high vibe people have a really hard time detaching from them and moving on from them, because in our worldly nature we all want these things of the world, and it seems to have most all those things of the world in a way that we want, except for some of these issues that could happen. And one could be that one person is being more authentic and hopeful and believing and loving, more emotionally balanced, more inspired to be more just and fair, and maybe the other person likes that and they like being in a relationship with people who are like that, but maybe they kind of create the illusion of being that type of person, but they're really not. And so there's some of these issues about, do I think this is just and fair, or are they kind of use the love that I have for them to kind of manipulate me, or do they even use their emotions just kind of more manipulatively, and their sexuality manipulatively, and their status and their ego and their image and their charm and their words manipulatively? Is it authentic? That's high vibe Leo. Are some of the people in my life, are they really who they say they are? Is that really the truth of who they are? People who are loving freely give of themselves. It's not like, well, I don't know if I really want to give to you because, if you love them, it's almost like you can't help but be freely giving of yourself. High vibe people know how to replenish themselves, fill their own cup emotionally. Because in their free will nature, they kind of work through their fears and insecurities, offer themselves love. That's the truth that they've learned. They've been enlightened to the truth that I need to offer love and compassion and forgiveness to myself, hold back from my more immature nature and my competitive nature and my prideful nature, because I've probably already done that in my life, and I know that doesn't get me what I want. And I am just more motivated and inspired and not even maybe more interested in being more manipulative or selfish or greedy. I like to give of myself. And then you can get in relationships with people that always seem to be up in their head about giving too much of themselves. And part of that can be because they don't know how to give to themselves. So what they have is very coveted. So to give any of that to anyone, and again, there could just be fear and insecurity and fearful that other people, because they've probably had their life experiences that make them the way they are. And, we've all went through, dealt with more shadowy people who weren't who we thought they were. And sadly, for some people, it always keeps them up in a mental prison. And some people, because of those experiences that they went through of various degrees, some much worse than other people. And we've all went through situations like that where people where we thought we were going to have this new beginning and we wanted to hold on to them. They wanted to hold on to us. We loved each other. And then something happened and things changed and it didn't work out the way we wanted, right? And we had to move on. They moved on. And so we can all go through a feeling and a period after things like that happen. It's just that high vibe people kind of do harness this more high vibrational energy. Like, there's always going to be shadowy people in the world. There's always going to be hurtful and unkind people. There's always going to be people who are snobby and bossy and controlling, who try to throw you under the bus. There's always, and not everything I go pursue is going to work out the way I want. And that's like high vibe Scorpio. I want to go on the roller coaster of life emotionally, because Scorpio's emotional water sign also. I don't want to just stay on the merry-go-round where it's safe. I don't want to just move forward in job, friendships, and relationships where it's safe and it looks good, and maybe they indulge me in my fear or my insecurity or my past pain and heartbreak, or they don't require me to really do love or step out of my comfort zone. That's how some people want to live their life. They might harness a more worldly, shadowy Scorpio Leo energy. Let me look here for a minute. Where high vibe Scorpio, emotional water sign, I'm willing to explore the mysteries of life. We're emotionally complex human beings. I first need to get inspired within myself to get to know myself. Do I love myself? Am I balanced within myself? Do I treat other people the way I like to be treated? Am I kind of competitive? Am I kind of prideful? Am I kind of immature? Am I kind of selfish? we'd have to be inspired to even want to get to know ourselves first. Some people don't even want to do that, partly because maybe they don't want to see the truth about themselves. We've all made mistakes in our life. We all have been more immature because we got these lessons to learn in life. The thing is, some people did kind of learn those lessons during life, and they moved on from some of those old ways of being. And they told themselves, I am not going to invest in some of those old ways of being. I have seen the truth. That was prideful. That was immature. That was hurtful. That was me being selfish or greedy or bossy or controlling or manipulative, right? Some people learn those lessons over time, different lessons over time. They really are not the same person. They have changed over time. Sadly, there's some other people in the world who didn't quite get the truth or grasp the concept. They saw other people quit acting in certain ways, and those people might have had other people who wanted to be in friendship or relationship with them, and they maybe didn't want to be in friendship and relationship with some of the people who were kind of in some shadowy energy. So some of the people who were in shadowy energy had an idea. Instead of seeing the truth, they had an idea, oh, so I have to, kind of like shadowy Scorpio is, put those shadowy ways of being, and anybody can harness shadowy Scorpio. I have to kind of bury those ways of being, even though I haven't dealt with the truth of it and I haven't seen the truth of it. Well, I shouldn't do that and I shouldn't act that way because that's immature. That's competitive. It's manipulative. It's prideful. It's hurtful. I'm full of myself. They just thought, oh, I just have to bury those things under the surface. Emotionally, that really is the truth of who they are and kind of what motivates and inspires them. But that's when some people could decide to kind of live more from their mind than their heart, suppress who they really are, and invest in trying to create this illusion that they learned some of the same lessons that other people learned in life. And then they try to present themselves as a more, like they're not acting that way anymore either. And they don't think like that and they don't behave like that. And now people should want to move forward with them in a relationship. And so shadowy people can try to present themselves as more high vibrational to get other people who are more high vibrational so that they look like they've healed, grown, changed, matured themselves, are more emotionally mature and balanced. And, also the Four of Pentacles being Capricorn energy, shadowy Capricorn energy is represented by the devil, which is like our shadowy, more immature, self-indulgent nature. How did some people authentically free themselves from their being caught up in the illusion of their more self-indulgent, shadowy nature? By investing in love and being willing to deal with the truth and see where they needed to change. And also see through the illusion of some people in their life that those people weren't very maybe just or fair or authentic or loving and maybe were more manipulative or caught up in themselves. And they kind of got out of their ego about it. That I can have love for people, but they can be whatever person they are, right? And for a long time, it could have caused me inner conflict, like, why doesn't that person love me? Well, that person is where they're at. Why isn't that person more just and fair? Because they still got some things to work through. Why isn't that person more motivated and inspired to move forward with me in a more just and fair and authentic and loving way? Because that's not where they're at. Other people worked through all those issues. They offered love, truth and love to it. But in earth sign energy, that means you have to invest time, energy, and effort to work through your inner conflict and emotional confusion and all those things that kind of have you up in your head to free yourself. Shadowy Capricorn energy represented by the devil, it takes work and effort to free yourself and become independent and accept that other people operate from a different foundation, because the one pentacle separates from the 10 of pentacles. There was a way of living life, a way of viewing life, people I had that I could have grown up with, people I was in friendship with that either I was in a relationship with them long term, I thought I would be in a relationship with them long term, or they're just still part of my workplace or my community or my family. But I'm my own person, and I don't get as caught up in my head and manipulated by those people like I may be used to. When they do this and they act like that, yeah, it's like, is that too bad? Yes, well, then I'm going to kind of distance myself, hold back from them, and I'm just going to move on, because apparently whatever it is that kind of maybe makes them act certain ways or behave certain ways apparently is flaring up, and they're acting in those ways and behaving in those ways. And when they act in those ways and behave in those ways, I don't care to be around them. But some people we can't get away from, you know and for some, again, if they're family, like adult child, brother, sister, mom, dad, cousin, relative, they're always going to be a part of our life. So um we just kind of keep our distance from some of the people that we've come to see just are the way they are. And if we have to be around them, just like everybody else in the world, you treat them the way you like to be treated. If they can respond in kind, things go okay. If they don't, you kind of keep your distance and move on. And then people who maybe aren't family, well, those people you could completely detach from because they were a friend or a romantic interest. But of course, it could have been someone you wanted to marry or somebody you did marry. But yeah, you have no more interest and they're not your family, original family per se. So, if they act or behave in certain ways that you don't feel is just and fair and balanced and loving and inspired by love, then you're going to let them go do that with someone else. And I think the people who try to create an illusion about the type of person they are, and they know they're more fearful, codependent, more about themselves or how it benefits them, or more competitive or more manipulative, I think they're always in a mental prison in a relationship. That's like a karma that they have to live with all their life, because they're always afraid that other people will love themselves and be inspired to maybe even want to keep moving forward in life. And some of the shadowy people have a lot of fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. Again, they have a way of living life or viewing life or living somewhere or people in their life that they're codependent on, or just their more worldly view of life. And if that's their comfort zone, that's how they want to live their life, they don't tell people when they get in a relationship with them, oh, by the way, I'm more about conforming to the world. I'm kind of in a mental prison about being more independent. And I kind of let the world manipulate me and a whole bunch of other things manipulate me. And so I kind of love, in their Capricorn nature of self, I'm kind of more about the world and competing in the world. And for some, that's the most important thing. It's to keep up with people. And, it's not really love. But of course, they don't tell people. And some of the people they want to be in a relationship with is because it would make them seem like that's what they have. And it could be more out of their competitive nature. I want to look like I'm with this kind of person, or I have more status or image or money or power or social clout or whatever than some other people. Or want people to view me differently. But, is that the truth of why they even get in those relationships? Some people come to realize that. And some of those people move on. And then the next people they get in a relationship with, they're always afraid that person won't be willing to stay more in the relationship out of their fear, insecurity, want for these things of the world, the ego, the image, or the status. And they're always afraid that one day those people will work through their issues of why they would settle for this. Why, it's kind of funny. The Five of Wands can kind of mean the competition. And in our dualistic nature of Gemini, which is kind of that Two of Swords that we were talking about, what do I think is just and fair? What is my truth? Do I want to hold back from the truth and keep making my life more about me or caught up in these things that I make important in my life? Why don't I invest in love? Why don't I love myself? I could get out of more codependent energy. Why don't I invest the time, energy, and effort to be more independent, to work through some of my emotional confusion and my fears and my insecurities and issues from my past, to offer peace and love and compassion, that everybody was where they were at. Everybody had the free will to change. Everybody had the free will to do this work within themselves. Some people did, some people didn't, and I accept the truth of it, and I can change, and I'm going to change. And I'm not going to let all those things keep manipulating me. And I'm going to take the lessons I've learned from all these different people. And now when I meet people and I kind of get to know them and they exhibit some of these traits, characteristics, or ways of being that I've already dealt with other people, and I didn't care for it, I'm not in like wounded energy still about some of those people in my life. Like that person didn't love me and I always wanted that person to love me. And oh my gosh, you have traits and characteristics kind of like that person. Because I'm wounded and I have this inner conflict about it, I'm going to get in a relationship with you to see if you'll love me, and that will like complete the cycle for me and I'll be healed. It's like, no. When I see that people exhibit some of those same traits and characteristics like some other people, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I almost could be drawn and attracted to those people because of it. Why would I want to get in a relationship with someone like that who maybe could be self-indulgent, immature, prideful, competitive, emotionally shallow, superficial, defensive to love? Why would I do that? Why would I repeat that pattern? Probably because I've dealt with people who are like that, and it bruised my ego that they didn't treat me maybe in a just or fair or authentic or loving way. And I'm hoping this time things can be different. But I've learned that if people show me that's the kind of person they are, in their free will, that's the kind of person they choose to be. Very hard, because that's like a core foundational truth. Why would I try to change people? Why not accept the truth? Oh, yeah, I've kind of been hurt by people like you before that act that way or behave that way or think that way or feel that way. And I've learned to hold back. I'm not going to try to change people. I'm looking for the people who, like me, have dealt with people like that. And they don't want to be in a relationship with people who act that way and think that way and feel that way and behave that way. I'm looking to invest in those people. People I don't have to change. People who have already aren't acting like that or behaving like that or thinking like that or defensive like that or competitive or prideful or more about themselves or more about things they indulge in to feel better. Or, it's kind of like people stay in the friend zone. I can be friends with you in my community, my neighborhood, my workplace, wherever. But yeah, I'm not going to invest more in you because you've already shown me you kind of have some of these shadowy traits or characteristics, and I've already Been there and done that. And uh, I can know you as an acquaintance, but I'm going to keep moving forward. And as some people work through, that's the difference. When people were in situations like that, everybody could have at one time rejected harnessing these energies in a more high vibrational way. And we've all been there. We all had more, we were all more immature. We were all more self indulgent. We were all more full of ourselves to some degree at these different stages of life. We all had more, we were all more codependent. We were all more caught up in these things of the world. And we kind of had these lessons to learn where we didn't even kind of realize how manipulated we could have been in our more worldly nature, harnessing these energies in a more shadowy way. Until, we would go through those phases of life and then we'd kind of realize, wait a minute, there's a problem here, or it's just time, I feel like, for me to move forward in life differently. And then they work through, why do I have so much fear about moving forward in life differently? And they had to work through these issues to start harnessing them in a more high vibrational way, to become free of them, to change, to get out of their ego about a way of living life, viewing themselves, viewing others. And when they did that, some other people didn't. And the other people may never want to work through these issues. So what are they? The Two of Cups, the Eight of Cups, the Hermit, the Knight of Swords, and the Hangman. Well, we all wanted to, in the Two of Cups, be in friendship and relationship. The Two of Cups is Cancer energy. We all wanted to be in relationship with people. And because we wanted those things, sometimes it's kind of this idea of walking away from your more authentic, hopeful, believing, loving nature. And we kind of indulged ourselves in kind of creating an illusion about who we were in a way, and caught up in the illusion of the world. And partly could have been because we hadn't even gotten to know ourselves. Again, we come in contact with all these different people to help us get more clear about what our truth is and our truth isn't. I mean, at any stage of life, from the time we were 8, 15, 18, 21, we did have some truths that we probably stood up for and believed in, but we still were pretty kind of caught up in the illusion of the world, and could have kind of felt like, we just weren't in high vibe Leo energy yet, which is kind of being comfortable in your own skin, maybe, to be more authentically yourself. It's hard to be more comfortable within yourself when you still don't even know yourself, right? And you're still really manipulated by the world. So we act certain ways and we dress certain ways and we do certain things and that other people are doing in order to have these relationships, because we're sure that's the most important thing, and we want those things as human beings. So sometimes we kind of, the more we do that, the more what happens when we move forward in something, and then we could kind of feel stuck in it. And maybe during the course of getting to know someone, we kind of did get a little more clear about our truth, because the Virgo Hermit is about doing this inner work to get more clear about what our truth is. And again, do I think this is just and fair? Do I think this is acting with character and integrity? Is this my truth? Isn't this my truth? What about the people I'm hanging out with? And sometimes the Hangman can be about we do become enlightened to the truth, but then we have these people that we're in friendship or relationship with, and it's like, am I willing to keep hiding my truth? I mean, I don't think we have to tell other people, well, you did this and you think this way, or you did that, and I disagree with all that. I don't think we have to do all that. You know, we could just be, we could just tell people that I want to, we could just kind of start doing some other things, meet some other people, and kind of gradually over time, some relationships kind of distance themselves. That works with a friendship, doesn't quite work with a romantic relationship, and then it can be really hard. And I don't think we have to be hurtful or unkind to tell people, that can be the hard thing. You don't want to someone who you even could have love for, but your truth and kind of how I think it seems like you want to move forward, and I might feel like you want to stay in a comfort zone, and that's like your idea of the dream life. And that's kind of Pisces over there, is kind of these dreams that we have that we think will be emotionally fulfilling. And kind of being in a relationship with you, I don't think it's going to kind of move forward the way I thought it was going to move forward. And maybe I am a little more inspired within myself to be more independent, and some of the other people at different times in my life aren't more independent, or like to stay more in their comfort zone and more codependent maybe on their friends or family, to not be more independent from them, and have more hope and faith and belief that, that if there's these dreams that we have that we want to manifest, that we could kind of manifest not the exact same things, but kind of like we'll find friendship and community and meet people if to invest in this dream could require that, right? And then just some people, again, what they're kind of motivated and inspired by is different, but some people could realize when something was going on that they didn't know what it was, but it just seemed like things weren't moving forward, so they could have done this inner work within themselves because they didn't know if it was just within themselves. I don't want to tell someone else, well, I feel this way and blah, 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 and things don't seem to be going right. And it's like, maybe it's all within me, and I need to work through my issues. So that's kind of the difference. High vibe people are willing to do this work within themselves. What do I maybe indulge in or am more codependent on, and people or whatever that maybe aren't conducive to this moving forward? Where do I need to change? And so they could look at that and do this work within themselves. And even though it could be difficult, if they want it to move forward, they don't want to sabotage it. So even though they could go through their defensiveness, go through their inner conflict, be kind of angry, we could all have some vices and ways of being that other people don't appreciate. Are we willing to compromise on those things somewhat, or temper ourselves? That's high vibe Leo also, is to temper yourself in some ways, like, well, if I do this, too much of this, and that causes a problem. If I'm sure by now you already have some examples in your head. Well, so the high vibe people were willing to compromise. The hangman can be willing to see things from other people's perspective. Okay, well, I do want this to keep moving forward. I don't want to sabotage it. So I am going to do this work within myself to work through why I have some inner conflict that makes me hold back from being willing to more compromise on something, and it isn't, I suppose some people could make deal breakers, and other people could think those deal breakers are completely ridiculous, It's kind of like, for one thing, like, say somebody gets in a relationship with someone, and that there's certain things that they do. Say it's like they drink, or periodically they smoke, or they smoke all the time, or whatever, or that they, live their life a certain way. They're not, to a degree, right? And people were willing to be in friendship and relationship, but some people could have been hiding, just like maybe you could have been hiding, that you kind of thought people would eventually kind of quit aligning more with those things or those people or those vices, and that they'd become independent of them. And you could have thought that. People could have thought that about things with you, but was anybody telling the truth? And maybe people were hiding the truth, like, well, I was really hoping over time you were going to quit doing that or whatever. But because they wanted the friendship or the relationship to keep moving forward, they had inner conflict about telling the truth. It really bugs me when you do that, and I wish you would stop doing that, or I think you're being kind of bossy or controlling or whatever it could be. So we hide the truth. Well, then, how long do we go and move forward in something, continuing to hide the truth? And then we're kind of continuing to move forward in something, and then we feel kind of stuck in it and maybe a little bit in a mental prison about it because nobody was telling the truth about how they thought, well, I thought you were going to change. Well, I thought you were going to change. And then also maybe, we don't communicate with each other what we just assume, other people think like we do. And the people who really are kind of more up in their head about the ego and the image and competing in the world and, kind of that's their truth, and they don't plan to live their life differently. They don't plan to live their more maybe authentic life, be more independent in the world. We don't talk about that like when we're dating. We haven't even learned we needed to ask those questions yet. But when we get older, we do. um, and of course, the people who are more harness this energy in a more worldly, shadowy way, who might be hiding that they do kind of like to indulge themselves in their more worldly Leo Capricorn nature, and they might be a little more defensive to looking at life from a different perspective. And again, because that's their truth, and they would think that, of course, everybody thinks that way. And the people who don't think that way, who are more inspired to be independent and not make their life so much about conforming to the world or making those the most important reasons for being in a relationship, of course, think that if those people are a little caught up in the world and maybe a little bit up in their head about being more authentic or loving, they think they're going to change. And then we move forward in relationships and we're kind of in a mismatched relationship. And some people have been there. Some people are in those right now. The truth sets us free. But it can cause us inner conflict to speak our truth to the people in our life. Sometimes we can be tempted. The Seven of Cups can mean that we have options, right? We could already be in something. Well, high vibe people work through why they would be tempted by that. And they work through, what about the people I'm in relationship with? Would I be acting more out of pride and ego and lust and greed? Competitive energy, prideful energy. Why wouldn't I keep moving forward with the people I'm in a relationship with? Well, maybe because those people, if I keep moving forward with them, those people kind of keep being inspired to change, and I have to keep being inspired to change. And some people might decide, again, we go through those phases of life with certain people, and that's when some people can be like, but we've kind of gotten to a core foundational truth. I was willing to do a lot of that compromising and to work together with each other. But now it really would be, this would be different. Yeah. And some people are just like, it was one thing to work together and do some healing and growing and maturing, so long as we were still kind of more living our life from this vantage point. But now, if you want me to kind of look at life differently, well, now I'm kind of more defensive. Because that is being inspired kind of in my worldly truth to maybe be more authentic, come out from behind my ego, come out from behind my defensiveness, be more authentic, be more independent. To change these things kind of in my behavior or my actions or how I treat people, that was one thing. But to kind of change my perspective of how I view life and, because high vibe people could be where I think there's more to life than just making it about the world. And other people could be like, what? What the hell? There is no other, there is no higher truth or justice to aspire to. We live on the planet. The planet says to make our life about these things, and that's it. And they, even though they could present themselves as someone in the world who views life from a higher perspective, they have mental conflict about high vibe Virgo would be more independent. High vibe Virgo would be more like a spiritual leader in the world. The 4 plus the 5 makes Taurus energy, which is being a spiritual leader in the world, just in the sense that you really walk the talk. Not creating the illusion, I'm this pillar of society, and look, I attend these functions regularly, but they're really still more driven by themselves or the things of the world and the ego and the image. It really would be to be who they say they are. And some people are like, I have no interest in changing. I am all about those things in the world. And I do create this illusion about the kind of person I am. And that's okay for me. And if that's not okay for you, you can go. I'll go find someone else who I think thinks the way I think. And I will move forward with that person. It's like, okay, well, you go do you. And I'm going to go find people in the world who are more on the same page as me. If you're not someone looking to get in a relationship more out of pride, ego, to feel better, to manipulate other people, to confuse other people, to indulge yourself in, well, you're going to be using more discretion, right? Some of the people who it's like, I just need to get in a relationship with someone to feel better because I'm in my ego. I need to just get in a relationship to make it look like I've healed and grown and matured myself. I need to get in a relationship to look like I'm in competitive energy. I want to look like I'm the winner. Well, you're not going to be using as much discernment, right? I just am looking for someone to look like I won, or I had a new beginning, or someone to indulge myself in a relationship with. Well, I think what those people don't see coming is, they're just repeating a pattern. That could be how come they always get in relationships with people? Some reason other than truth and love. And while they keep repeating that pattern and the same scenario plays out again, and if they do find someone who's more on that same page as them, then great. If that's how that person is happy living their life that way, and you weren't happy living your life that way, get out of your ego about it. You know that some of the people that you've moved on from, you know how they are, you know how they interact and how they think and how they treat people. And if they're more emotionally shallow and superficial and like to live more from their mind than their heart versus being more authentic and loving, then if the other person is okay being in a relationship with someone like that, that's their free will choice. You get out of your ego about it. You've already seen the truth, and those other people that get in friendship or relationship with them will have to decide if that's their truth or not, but you knew it wasn't your truth. And then people who are more discerning can be getting to know people but they're trying to get to know people because they don't want to get in relationships with people who want to be in a relationship more for these other reasons. And so they are taking their time. There could be some people that they would more like to move forward with, and then we're just a human being who has to work through some of our own fears and insecurities about kind of communicating with people and making a small gesture to people to let them know that we would like to get to know them more, because we kind of feel like they are someone that is on the same page as us. And some people have people in their life that they're moving forward with, friends and family and coworkers and whatever. Then there could be other people that would like to be a part of it, but they know that they can't. And then the high vibe people are gonna, well, who seems to just be creating an illusion that that's who they are, but you've already kind of shown us you're not. And are people willing to humble themselves? If you already know some people who acted shady, who had some growing up and maturing to do, just like at different times in your life you had growing up and maturing to do, high vibe people were willing to humble themselves. I had lessons to learn, and I did. And they communicate their truth. And they could tell some people, I don't want you to keep moving away from me. I want us to be friends again, And it might be a different relationship than it was before, but high vibe people are willing to humble themselves. Some other people are not willing to do that. And because of it, they keep hiding the truth. They keep staying in situations, maybe for some of them, for the wrong reasons, because out of pride and ego about speaking the truth, being humble, being authentic. And so some of those people keep moving forward in situations and relationships more for those other reasons. But high vibe people deal with the truth. If people had freed themselves from things that manipulated them, if I already know some of the people in my life needless and I have known, if that's not what they're doing, then they may never free themselves. I have no idea. So I'm going to keep moving forward and investing in and aligning with the people who keep working together with me in that way. Friends and family. And as each day goes by that some people don't work through these issues to speak the truth, the more time goes by, the more I work through it and I free myself, that I kind of see that they're not who I thought they were. And that's the Seven of Cups. That I thought they were someone who was more independent, did act more with character and integrity, was more just and fair, was less prideful, was more willing to be more independent and authentic. And the more time that goes by, I see that's not maybe the truth. And sometimes some people were that way, but then we can kind of drive our life off into the ditch. And so, and then when, like any of us, when we've kind of driven our life off into the ditch and we've kind of lost perspective, and it's like trying to escape hell. It's really hard to get out of it. And some people will never get out of it. The more prideful, the more egotistical, the more immature, the more full of themselves, the more stubborn people are, those people, or the more they look to things to be the answer instead of love, because they don't want to pick love, the less likely they will ever free themselves from it. The people who are more motivated and inspired by love to begin with, but just have to work through some fears or insecurities, or stand up for themselves, those could be people who work through it. But otherwise, high vibe people are going to keep moving forward. Okay, so what's coming up for people who harness some high vibe Leo energy? Some people are kind of used to, I don't know, not having to take more of the action to have to try to move something along. And so some people could know someone who they could view as someone they'd like to be in a relationship with. And it's like, but they're like waiting for that person to maybe make more of an overture or a gesture. Some of those people might want to think about the fact that if they think that person is, and for some reason, kind of maybe would feel like maybe if someone is maybe more in a position of power or authority or something, like, I mean, people can always just get to know each other, but to make a more indication, I'd like to get to know you more, it might seem like the person who is more in a position of some sort of status or image, right? But someone like that could be used to other people doing that. And it's like, yeah, and what has that gotten you? There can be a lot of people in the world who are quite competitive, quite trying to get people to get in relationship with them. But do you ever take action towards things that you really want to be in relationship with? Well, you could either keep repeating the same pattern, or you get out of your ego and you humble yourself and you make a small gesture to someone to get to know them. And the more high vibe people are, the less they're in their ego about it. But I mean, for some, it could be where it doesn't seem appropriate, for the other person to make more of a gesture, because I don't know, hopefully you get it. If you get it, you get it. What's coming up for the high vibe people they don't see coming? The Ace of Pentacles to the Nine of Swords. Why? Because of the Three of Swords. Well, in high vibe, the Ace of Pentacles is learning these lessons, truth and love. If they add that to the to the Nine of Swords, that would equate to the Ten of Swords, and they would close out a cycle that could keep them, and was keeping you, having conflict kind of between your mind and your heart. And so, and you could have had people in your life that wanted you to keep staying in that conflict. And you had stress about seeing the truth of it. But you did decide to do this work within yourself, to work through your own fears and insecurities, because you want justice. And if it's a romantic relationship, it's supposed to be based on truth and love. And love is to be just and fair, and you're supposed to treat other people the way you like to be treated. It isn't more tipped out of balance where someone can be more about them or being more indulged in the relationship. And people are supposed to be authentic and inspired by love. And because you were kind of heartbroken, you invested in the truth and you did all that work within yourself to have this new beginning. It freed you from something that wasn't aligned with your truth. Because your truth in your Gemini energy was different. You were in a more mismatched relationship with someone who likes to live more from their mind than their heart. And you realized if you wanted your dream to come into reality, even though you could have love for some of those people, their truth was different. And you weren't willing to give up your dream of being in more just, fair, balanced, authentic, and loving relationship. So it helped you close out a cycle with people who in their more worldly nature, because like the Page of Pentacles, the Ace of Pentacles can represent all three of the earth signs. In their Gemini nature of free will and their Libra energy of what is just and fair, your truth was different. And you accepted the truth of it. You worked through your inner conflict about accepting that truth, getting out of your ego about it. And you're looking now for the people and moving forward with the people in your life who are more on the same page as you. Your idea of what you think is just and fair and the truth foundation that you operate from is more inspired by truth and love than something else. And so you get to go on this new journey. You completed a cycle. It's like you learn the lesson you're meant to learn from a phase of life. You will not be repeating those ways of living or behaving because you went through the difficult period and it's not easy. You shed an old layer of yourself, and you didn't give up your dreams. Because of that, some other people could be upset because they wanted you to do life the way they wanted you to do life and move forward with them in friendship, relationship, or a workplace. But they're kind of aligned with the competition, kind of bossy or controlling or manipulative or more about themselves or more materialistic or more superficial or shallow or operate more out of fear and insecurity and pride and ego. And you work through those issues of whatever it was within you that would have made you keep staying in that kind of relationship dynamic. And you probably offered them truth and love for them to work through it, and they held back from it. And they thought that maybe you wouldn't love and believe in yourself. And they thought if they didn't move forward with you, you'd be in your ego about it and your competitive nature, and you'd come back and do it the way they wanted. But you didn't. You kept moving on. And it was kind of illuminated. They had the free will to speak the truth, illuminate the truth, work through these issues, be more just and fair and authentic and loving to work with you, and they chose not to do that. And now you know that truth about them. We all have free will in a relationship to work together with people in a just and fair and loving way, or we kind of could repeat an old pattern of maybe trying to manipulate or control people to get them to do it we want, or it just kind of shows we're not as mature as we might present ourselves as being, or stable or grounded or something, or as motivated and inspired in the relationship as we created the illusion of. And other people have seen the truth of it. And the high vibe people are offering what they have to offer people: truth, love, justice, fairness, authenticity to other people who might be open to it. And the shadowy people are going to take what they have to offer to other people to see if people want to get in a relationship with them. Ooh, that's too many. What's coming up for people who harness a more worldly, shadowy Leo energy that they might not see coming up? And I think as high vibe people move forward, there's always going to be shadowy people. So you're going to meet other people who live more from their mind than their heart, who are kind of more shadowy, that want to be the next person to indulge in a relationship with you. But as you move forward, emotionally balanced from love, you'll be willing to get to know people. And the people who you realize that's their truth, you'll kind of keep your distance from. They stay in the friend zone. And then there's other people who really are more on the same page as you, who want to invest in you because they see your just, fair, balance. You harness high vibe. Like Pisces, Scorpio, Gemini, Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, all the earth signs. And some of the other people in your life tried to create the illusion they did, but they didn't. And other people do, and they see that truth about you, and they want to invest in you. What's coming up for the people who harness a more worldly, shadowy Leo energy that they might not see coming? It has to do with this card not showing itself. Why? Because of the Empress energy. And the Empress energy is Libra and Taurus. So the Five of Pentacles is Taurus energy. The Three of Swords, and over here we were kind of talking about the Two of Swords, which is Libra energy. Because the shadowy people keep thinking in their Libra, Leo, and Taurus philosophy of life that shadowy Empress is either they want to kind of be the indulged, pampered person in the relationship some way, which can just be, I want to be in a relationship with people who are tempered in their ego and loving, but I want to kind of indulge myself in the illusion of being loving and have them stay in a relationship with me. I plant fake seeds, they plant real seeds. But because they're so abundant and loving, it makes our garden look very abundant and loving. But they're still operating more from their defensive egoic nature, or can all be about materialism. Because they keep doing that, they are always going to have some more high vibrational people in their life. And some of those people are going to leave their life. Even though some of those people, the Empress can talk about love. Friends, family, we can have all sorts of people in our life who can be loving, who want to give birth. The Empress can talk about wanting to give birth to something new. But the shadowy people want to keep giving birth to the same old thing over and over and over again. And some of the loving people in their life have kind of been hiding the truth that they feel stuck in a relationship with them. They keep offering them truth and love, trying to help them work through some of maybe their fears or their insecurities or their prideful nature, or to look at things from a different perspective or other people's perspective. And the other people keep like, no, I don't want to see the truth. No, I don't want to hear what you have to say. But hiding that because they're more about indulging themselves in some way. Or they're sure there's something that will make them happy. Someone, something, things they already do, invest time, energy, and effort, maybe hoping other people will change, and other people are like, oh my gosh, will you wake up? But we can't make other people see the truth if other people want to hide from the truth. Some people could think, oh, my dreams can only come into reality with this person. No, your dreams can only come into reality with people around the same page as you. And some people, though, are shadowy and they know there's other people that are more about the world and they want to be in a relationship with someone like that. And that person might have the status or the ego or the image or whatever that they want. But they might not realize that maybe some of those people were that way. But maybe over time, those people changed and they're not the same person anymore. And they're like, well, no, that can't be because maybe you are even worse than me. I refuse to see the truth that someone who is maybe more immature, more bossy, more controlling, more full of themselves, more materialistically ego-driven, part of them doesn't want to see the truth, because if those people changed, and everybody could have agreed that some of those people were worse than them, they really don't want to see the truth of that. How did that person change? And I didn't. But anyway, they're going to have some high vibe people leave their life because the Six of Cups in Scorpio energy, people don't want to keep repeating this pattern, or some people don't want to be in a more emotionally shallow, superficial relationship. And some of these people are okay being in a more emotionally shallow, superficial relationship. That shadowy fire sign energy that people harness. It's just kind of more about sexually indulging yourself in the relationship. Shadowy Scorpio, I'm going to have sex with someone. We should be in a relationship. This would be good for the ego and the image and the status. You could indulge me or I could indulge you, whatever works out, or whoever it needs to be to indulge you. I want these things and I want to look like I have a certain status or image in the world. Doesn't have anything to do with truth and love. And some people aren't willing to stay in a relationship with them for those reasons. But if they think there's someone in their life who they think is kind of caught up in the illusion of them, does have some fears about being more independent, they're pretty sure that person would be defensive to the truth, because of their maybe want for this relationship to work or these things of the world. Our more worldly nature can blind us and cloud our judgment. If they think there's someone who they have that would be willing to do that, they might make an offer to that person, hiding they're going to repeat the same pattern like they repeated with other people. But if the other person doesn't know that, then they'll indulge in it and it'll look victorious and successful until the other person starts to see through the illusion, realizes it's not going to move forward the way they thought, and those people, if they're willing to get out of it. But they might end up in relationships with people who are also hiding that they're just like them, but they're creating an illusion. They're more motivated and inspired by love. And I think shadowy people want to be in a relationship with people who like loving to a fault, so that they will indulge them kind of in their poor behavior. But sometimes eventually the players get played. And ultimately, the core people in their life who keep indulging them are other people who are that way too. And so they're happy they live their life that way. And someone's creating the illusion they're willing to maybe more indulge them. But that's just a false mask they're wearing. They're really more about the ego or the image or the money or the status. And by the time some of these shadowy people see the truth of it, then it's really hard for them to get out of it because they are so tempted by this worldly image and status. And so then they could stay in a relationship with people that they hide, that they feel stuck with. They got kind of manipulated by people who are just like them, but because it kind of reveals the truth that they stay in it because those things are more important, even if they get in relationship with people who are like that too. I think they wanted a more imbalance. Like, I want to be shadowy, I want you to be loving. Like, it isn't just and fair, but I want you to be more loving and giving, and I take. I certainly didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who is like myself. But I think ultimately that's what they end up in, because they weren't willing to temper themselves and change when they were with people who are loving and encouraging, because they have a problem with tempering their ego or their indulgent or materialistic nature or ego. And so then new people who come into their life, the more loving people leave, and the people they're surrounded by are people that are happy they're that way. But for some reason they think like those people will change. They'll become more loving. But they weren't. It's again like expecting everyone else to change, but thinking they don't have to. Well, if the people who were willing to change and did change, but you weren't willing to move forward with them, and knowing that those people probably are going to be in relationships that are just and fair and motivated and inspired by truth and love, and you're in competitive energy and prideful energy, trying to give birth to that, but not authentically be in that energy, you just create, and that shadowy Pisces is, all you do is create the illusion of having that, but it's not a deep, meaningful relationship. It's a relationship more about pride and ego and competitive nature and fear and insecurity and codependency. Because both people would have to do love for it to be just and fair and balanced. And they like to present themselves as these pillars of society who are just and fair and balanced, but they're not. So they'll be hiding that they're just repeating this old pattern and feel like they're repeating an old pattern. They're new job, new friendship, new relationship, but they haven't changed. They're the same person they were in the last job, friendship, or relationship, and they're not going to give birth to anything new. And if the people they get in relationship with are willing to stay in that, never give birth to anything new, then that's their free will choice. Some of them won't, and they're not willing to repeat that pattern either. And that's when they're mad that other people have learned lessons from these life experiences. It's kind of like people who have the mentality of when we were all ignorant and younger, wishing people were still in that energy because they still have that mentality and way of thinking. And other people have grown and healed and matured themselves, and they're not willing to repeat some of those old relationship type of dynamics and ways of interacting in a relationship. And they're like, damn, but that's my truth, and I still want to do that. It's like, well, it gets harder and harder to find people who are willing to do that, unless you maybe find people who are younger or more codependent, or, try to take advantage of people's circumstances to try to manipulate and control them. So there you go, Leo. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.